Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Fiscal Fridays. If you enjoy this show, please like this video and subscribe to this channel to keep Idaho Freedom content in your newsfeed. The 2023 Legislative Fiscal Report was just released this week, revealing that nearly $2.4 billion were spent in supplemental appropriations, growing last year's budget by 19%. Now, supplementals are used to backfill the current year's budget when agencies want to overspend their original appropriations. For perspective, the amount spent on supplemental appropriations was $120 million just 5 years ago. This rapid growth indicates that Idaho politicians are really no better than their DC counterparts when it comes to fiscal recklessness. Now, the use of supplementals is worse than it has ever been before. Not only is this unsustainable, but it is a type of gamesmanship that hides the true growth of government. Eventually, this spending will catch up to the state's structural surplus, and Idahoans will feel it in the form of more taxes and government control. So how did Idaho come to this gargantuan amount of supplemental spending? Some would argue that it is mostly federal funds from COVID relief and the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act that contributed to this increase. But this is not entirely true. Federal funding makes up $655 million of supplemental spending. Meanwhile, general and dedicated funds contributed $874 and $821 million to the total, respectively. This means that the greatest contributors to this spending increase are not DC dollars, but the taxes you pay to the state of Idaho on your gas, your groceries, your home, and your paycheck. When was the last time you didn't owe taxes to the state of Idaho? Think about it. Every April, you end up owing more and more. It is no surprise that all this is being spent away. But the problem with supplementals is that they hide all this spending from the bottom line. When lawmakers and constituents want to compare growth from year to year, they immediately look at the bottom line of the budget sheet. But these numbers are deceiving. This is because there are only a few ways to compare and measure growth. First, you could compare the original appropriation from fiscal year 2023 to the original appropriation for fiscal year 2024. But this excludes any changes that were made to the budget, like supplementals. The unprecedented use of supplementals diminishes this once useful measure of spending in the state. Taken at face value, this measure would make it appear as though spending only grew by 7.4%. Alternatively, you could compare total appropriations for fiscal year 2023 to original appropriations for fiscal year 2024. This is because supplementals could not be added to fiscal year 2024 yet, but you could get the total number for fiscal year 2023. However, this is not a true measure of spending growth either. Including supplementals in fiscal year 2023 makes the original appropriation in fiscal year 2024 comparatively smaller, in this case nearly 12% smaller. But spending didn't really decrease because the unspent balances of these supplementals will carry over into the next fiscal year. So how do we fix this? To put it simply, the Idaho legislature needs to stop the frivolous use of supplementals. They are intended for emergencies, and very few situations this year could actually qualify as such. Idahoans don't budget the way government does. If you were to adopt this fiscal policy, you would set a grocery budget of, let's say, $100. When you're in the store, you decide that you actually want to spend $130, so you just raise your budget on the spot to stay, quote, under budget. This practice is unsustainable because you may as well not have a budget if you can raise it whenever you would like. You also have to find a way to source the extra $30. In the case of the Idaho government, they scrape it off the top of the excess taxes they collected as part of the structural surplus, instead of giving it back to you at the end of the year. If you were to simply tack on supplemental spending to the budget for fiscal year 2024, where it belongs, then you are looking at a 26% increase from the 2023 original appropriation, not 7.4% like the report suggests. But the problem is that this is growth you will notice. In the meantime, the government continues to go right under your nose, and when spending catches up to the surplus, you have a very large government and an even larger tax bill to sustain it. There is a lot of talk about how Congress is voting to raise the debt ceiling, greenlighting more federal government spending. Idaho cannot borrow like the federal government, but their use of supplementals is very similar. They steal money that should belong to you, the taxpayer, then use it to expand the bureaucracy, which leads to more spending, and the cycle goes on, snowballing into a bigger problem. This is far from Governor Little's kitchen table economics that he touts in his speeches. Idahoans should demand more transparent budgeting and responsible stewardship of their tax dollars. The government gravy train must end at some point, but it has to happen because taxpayers said enough is enough, rather than the state spending itself into oblivion like the feds in D.C. For more episodes of Fiscal Fridays or other great content from the Idaho Freedom Foundation, please visit idahofreedom.org. Also, we'll be taking a break next week, but we'll be back on the 16th to give you the latest analysis on fiscal policy in Idaho. Thank you for watching.